Hi, I am here to answer your questions about Philippine laws. Now, can foreigners own private lands in the Philippines? Unfortunately, foreign nationals cannot own private lands in the Philippines. Why is this so? Because of the restriction in the 1987 Philippine Constitution, which exclusively reserves ownership of private lands to Philippine citizens and Philippine nationals. Now, are there exceptions to this law? There are several exceptions to this rule. First exception, if the land was acquired by a foreign national before the 1935 Philippine Constitution. Second exception, if the foreign national inherited the property, being the legal or natural heir through succession of the decedent. Third exception, dual citizens. Under the Dual Citizenship Law of 2003, now, dual citizens are former Filipino citizens who became citizens of foreign countries. They are deemed not to have lost their Philippine citizenship and they can own lands without restrictions under this law. Fourth, purchased by a domestic company, 40% of its authorized capital stock is owned by foreign nationals or foreign companies. Fifth, land was purchased by a foreign national who is a former natural-born Philippine citizen, subject to limitations. If the purpose of the purchase is for residence, you can purchase a maximum of 1,000 square meter of urban land and 1 hectare of rural land. Now, if the purchase of the property is for business or for commerce, you can own a maximum of 5,000 square meters of urban land and 3 hectares of rural land. Now, can foreigners own a property in the Philippines? Absolutely. You can buy a condominium unit, subject to the Philippine Condominium Act, and you can also own the buildings, which can be a commercial building or a residential building, which is built on the private land. You can have a separate legal ownership of these properties. Now, what if a foreign national acquires a private land with his or her Filipino spouse? What happens then? Now, if the foreign national purchases a private land with a Filipino spouse, the foreign national's name may be included in the contract of sale or deed of sale. But, however, it cannot be included in the transfer certificate of title. Now, you must remember that the transfer certificate of title is by all legal intents and purposes the legitimate owner of the property, and you cannot, as a foreigner, cannot sell the property without the consent, permission, and the signature of the Filipino spouse. So then, as a foreigner, what are your options? What are your other options to exercise a right over a private land? The foreign national can lease the private land subject to the Lease Act. Now, as a general rule, a foreign national or a foreign company can lease a private land for 25 years, which may be renewable for another 25 years. Can the lease be longer? Now, under the Investors Lease Act, a foreign investor may lease private lands for a maximum of 50 years, renewable for another 25 years. The lease, however, is subject to certain conditions, such as for the purpose of establishing industrial estates, factories, assembly or processing plants, agro-industrial enterprises, and similar activities, and the same should be registered with the Department of Trade and Industry. Also, for foreign companies located inside special economic and industrial zones, they can have a maximum of 50-year term lease renewable for another 25 years. So, for instance, what are your options then as a foreign national to own a property in the Philippines? Now, for instance, a foreigner can lease a private land, say, for 25 years and have full title to the house or the building over the leased land. Now, the leased land may be owned by, say, a Domestic company, 40% of which can be owned by a foreign national or a foreign citizen. These are your options of owning properties in the Philippines as a foreign national.